and I know I wouldn't be here today without him. So my testimony, I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I come from, what my story was, and what it's like today. And I can't give enough glory to God for all the tools and strength He's given me to be here today.
Amen.
I've been sober for a little over 3.5 years, clean and sober, and life today is great. Life is glorious. Um, Hope everybody's awake because I'm fixing to talk for a little bit. I wasn't feeling real good this evening, but God's given me the strength to get up here. For some reason, He needs me here, and I'm going to praise His word. Um, I was born in Indianapolis, but I consider myself being raised here. Moved here when I started second grade. Um, I was raised on a farm. I was raised in church, and I was raised on a basketball court, like everybody else from this town. Over the course of my life, most of the time when I tell people where I'm from, I tell them I'm from French Lick, Indiana, home of Larry Bird and Mike Meehan. The two most famous people to come out of French Lick are Larry Bird and Mike Meehan. They're just like, well, we've heard of Larry Bird, but we don't know about that Mike Meehan. It's just like, well, you may have heard of him, but now you know me. So, but I have had a blessed life. My childhood was great. I had great grandparents. I had great parents. It was me and my little brother. My mom was a homemaker at the time. My dad was a barber, is a barber still. My grandparents farmed, worked. They taught me good values in life, hard work, education, and God. And I was an altar boy at one time. I did summer school. I did Sunday school. I was brought up Catholic, and they're a little tough on they're a little strict on you when they want you to find God's way, which is good. And I really didn't have any problems as a kid. I fit in with everybody fairly well. I did good in school. I worked, and the more I grew, the more I worked, and the more I grew. So I was a workhorse when I was younger, justifiably so. And I really had no problems. I can remember a babysitter I had when we were still in Indianapolis, when I was somewhere around kindergarten or first grade. Him and some of his buddies were out in the backyard drinking beers, and I can remember, going out and seeing what they were doing. And he ended up letting me have a drink of beer. I guess I bugged him enough to where he let me have a drink, and I can still remember that taste of that first beer when I took that back then. And still to this day, it amazes me that I was hooked then. At such a young age, I knew I was hooked on, just the taste of that beer. And those older boys, thinking, oh, look at him, he's taking a drink, he's 5, 6 years old, whatever I was. But, and it wasn't until later on in about junior high, whenever, I started realizing that some kids were a little more popular than others, and some of the things they were doing to be popular was not what I should have been doing, but it's what I let myself believe I should do. I wasn't brought up around drinking or drugs or anything like that. Like I said, my parents, they occasionally drank. We didn't hardly ever have anything in the house. My grandparents didn't drink on either side. I wasn't brought, I just didn't have it around. And I had everything I needed, and, and more than I deserved. But I had a good childhood. It was more than most more than most around me, and I was very blessed. But for some reason, I thought I needed more. I fit in. I played basketball. You know, my grades were good, and you know, my dad was a barber. I was in the barbershop with him all the time, and you know, everybody knew me. I knew everybody in town, um, and because I played basketball, you know, I kind of had a little bit of popularity there, but for some reason it wasn't enough. I thought I needed more, and I got into drinking with some of my buddies, and then that graduated into doing some drugs with some of them. And you know, I knew it was wrong, but for some reason, I just decided that was what I thought I needed. Uh, Junior high was okay. High school, you know, it graduated into a little more drinking. I was still holding my own as far as my grades and everything. I mean, I wasn't a bad kid, but I knew there was something there that I liked doing bad things, and that turned into not only, you know, drinking and drugs, but lying and cheating and stealing, and it just you know, I don't know. I can't still to this day understand why, but it really doesn't matter because I feel I'm back on the right path now. As far as my horror story goes, um, you know, I've been blessed as far as being in places and given opportunities to do things a lot of people don't get. You know, I've been able to travel. Um, I've been different countries. Uh, I've met, you know, I guess movie stars, you know, athletes. I put myself in situations that I could get out there and do things that most people don't normally do. But I tarnished almost all of them with the fact that I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. It it got to be a problem. I would say by the time I got to college, I was full blown, you know, drinking pretty much every day. I got to the point, you know, I went to college on a basketball scholarship. Uh, was playing basketball for a while until I blew my knee out, and then I started drinking and drugging a lot. So I quit going to classes, and then that turned into just pretty much dropping out. I ended up coming back home. I sat around for a while and worked for a little bit, and then decided I was going back to school. I went back, tried out, made the ball team again, but my knee just wasn't going to let me do it. So when I decided I wasn't going to play basketball anymore, which was, you know, the love of my life at that time, I just felt disappointed in myself and turned back to drinking. And within a few months, I ended up in jail because I was drinking so much that I got my first DUI, I think, when I was 19. A lot of it was a blur, so my dates are hard to follow sometimes. Had my first DUI at 19. I ended up with 4 DUIs in my life, 2 possession charges, theft charge. Um, you know, I can't really go into a whole lot of detail because I can't remember a lot of it, but I mean, we've all got, you know, bad past, whatever. Uh, I've been in jail 9 times, 4 different counties. You know, I've wrecked almost every vehicle I've ever had or borrowed. I think at one time I counted there was about 13 different vehicles I'd either damaged or destroyed. A lot of times I should have went to jail getting pulled over for drinking. A lot of times you know, I've been in jail and had drugs that I've had on me when I went in and got them back when I got out. Uh, there were times that I was driving, I had cops lead me home. Other times I didn't make it all the way home. But I I was a firm believer that, you know, I was meant to work hard and play hard, and my playing hard turned into destroying myself as much as I possibly could. You know, I thought I was big to work, and I was big to just kind of take as much punishment as I could. And I inflicted a lot of that pain and punishment on myself for some reason that I still don't understand. I mean, I had everything good, but I just didn't feel as though it was enough. You know, I would get the opportunity to go somewhere I'd never been before, and I would go, and you know, I would enjoy it for a while, but it would always turn into drunken, passing out, and just ruining the whole experience. You know, and that's not healthy. And I knew it wasn't healthy. I've been in and out of rehab centers. I've been in and out of AA meetings, and I I paid attention. I listened, but I never really learned. And because I just, you know, that wasn't for me. I wasn't meant to. I wasn't a quitter, is what I was. You know, I wasn't up for quitting, doing what I thought I could handle. I played hard. I worked hard. You know, I don't know. I still to this day I can't understand why, but I know God has a plan for me, and I know, you know, it may be to be here tonight. It may be something 10 years down the road from now. It may be something I've already done. But God has a plan for us all. Uh, the third time I went to college, I ended up meeting my wife. And when he put her in my life, I know he was putting an angel to guide me and to give me the strength to not let the devil take me. And I am still so thankful. But she's a strong woman. I thought I was big and strong, but she is tougher than nails for putting up with what I put her through, because most women would have kicked me. Heck, I would have kicked me out long ago. Uh, but she stuck with me, and she put up with me, and she cried, and she yelled, and she threatened a divorce, and she threatened to put me in jail. But she just kept on trucking. She knew there was something there somehow that I didn't see. But I knew there was a time that I was going to have to quit, but I just didn't know when I was going to be ready. I have tried every drug out there twice. That was my motto for years and years, was I'll try anything twice. You know, not just once, twice. And there isn't anything I haven't tried. I've put myself in situations that, you know, that most people would run scared from. And how I survived, I have no idea. But God was always there at times. I could tell. You know, he would slap me, he would kick me, he would pull on me, and I could tell. You know, he was tugging, saying, "Hey, you're going to have to get out of this." He wasn't going to do it for me. He was giving me the strength to do it on my own. I always worked, and I always had good jobs. You know, I graduated college. I'm a certified chef. I've had my own restaurant here in town. Some of you may know that, yeah. Some of you may have worked for me, or with me anyways. But and some of you may have seen me in my times where I was drinking and drugging and just an absolute mess. But like I said, God gave me opportunities, and He just wanted to see how I was going to run with them, and most of them I just completely trashed. I had the restaurant for a year here in town, and due to my drinking and drugging, and I ended up closing that down after a year. And I've made every excuse for years and years, other than just taking the blame myself. It was always somebody else's fault. Wrong place, or right place, wrong time. Um, I'd lose a job. Well, they just didn't need, good help and this, that, and the other. Never was my fault. But now I realize, that everything was, I had the control to do it. I just didn't have the strength because I wasn't giving myself up to God the way I should have. I worked. I got a job on the road about 12 years ago, and that's when things really kicked in. It's when my addiction really kicked in. I took this job to try to get away and stop drinking and stop running my old habits. Try to get away from the people that I knew was helping me destroy myself. I went on the road. I was gone, pretty much 5 days a week, every week for 8 years. And all I did was destroy myself. And when I came home, I tried to destroy the rest of my family because I was so addicted I couldn't stop. I tried many times to stop. I started that job. I went, I think, six months without drinking, which was one of the longest periods I'd ever done. And then I just finally gave in because I couldn't take it no more. I was lonely being gone, and I decided that alcohol was what was going to fill that void, and it did nothing but make it worse. So over the course of those 8 years, I ended up losing the respect of my kids. I've got a son and 2 beautiful daughters who, thank goodness, they're like their mothers because they didn't get a whole lot of brightness from me as far as coming up with common sense and not destroying yourself. But I'd lost their respect because they didn't have any faith that I was ever going to be able to quit drinking and drugging and just, laying around being just not worth anything, which was what I felt all the time. But before I ended up losing that job, I'd started getting back into church, and I thought that was one thing that was going to, help kind of smooth over my drinking at first. I was using that as a crutch to try to kind of make myself look a little better, I thought, with the family. But the more I went to try to hide stuff, the more I started feeling that I was hurting people and I was hurting myself. And the more I started feeling that pain and that clarity, the more I wanted to go. And that was God pulling me back into the right track. I decided one year there for my New Year's Eve. My New Year's resolution was that I was going to go to church every Sunday for the next year. And as an alcoholic and addict, I couldn't quite understand why I would make a resolution quite like that. It didn't really make sense. But the more I went, the more I learned, the more I listened, and the more I loved. He was putting me in the right direction, but he hadn't yet turned me loose to learn what it was going to do for me. After 8 years of being on the road, I ended up losing that job because of my drinking, and that was a hard pill to swallow, but I knew I knew that was almost the final step that, I had never really lost a job because of it, straight out like that, but I had a good job, and I knew I was finally getting, as they say, sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was drinking all the time. There was nothing to come home to. My wife didn't like being around me. My kids didn't like being around me. Hell, I didn't even like being around me. But I couldn't stop drinking. I'd come across yet another good job to where I could be home and do the same thing I had been doing, which I was good at, you know. I mean, it's not hard to learn how to do what I do, but to be able to do it, 10 hours a day and then go back to the hotel and drink a fifth and a 12 pack every night for, 5 years, wake up with the shakes, tell yourself, that I'm not going to do this again tonight, and by noon be planning on going out and doing it again tonight, it was just, this job coming along was a godsend because I liked my job, and I knew if I was going to have to do it from home, I wasn't going to be able to keep drinking, or I was going to be doing it by myself. So when I started this job, I went the first week and decided I was going to quit drinking, and did. I didn't drink for the first week I started, and then I thought I had enough strength. I was going to go ahead and pour out what I had stashed, and I ended up pouring none of it out. I got the bottles, gathered them up, and was going to dump them all out there in the yard, and none of it hit the ground. I ended up drinking a fifth there by myself, and then I drove into town. And all this time, okay, backtrack just a little bit. I had enough DUIs to where I lost my license for life, and I didn't drive for 10 years because of that, and had to drive a four-wheeler to work through the country for 4 years at one job, and even from that, I still didn't learn not to quit drinking and driving. While without a license, I still drove. I still drove while I was drunk and high, and did it with my kids in the car. And I knew that was destroying me, but I didn't have the strength to stop. And I would feel the remorse from that, but I would drink that remorse away. I would just chalk it up for another mistake and drink it away. And I got real good at doing that. But I finally got my license back after 10 years, and actually got my CDLs after that. I had a company truck, and still drank and drove. I mean, that's how insane alcoholism and addiction is no matter, how much you lose, how much you get back, you can't stop. I tried it on my own. I had courts try to tell me to stop. I tried to stop for my family. I tried to stop, for my kids. But I never let God give me the strength to stop on my own, to want to stop. I never had Him as an excuse to want to use to be able to quit. But after I got this new job, like I said, I ended up driving into town drunk, grabbed 2 more bottles, and drank one of those from the liquor store in town out Flood Road. Stopped at Buddy's house, and that's when God said enough is enough. I knew right then and there. I reached for that second bottle, and that was my moment of clarity where I know He touched me and said, you can't do this anymore. I broke down, I cried, and I finally asked God for the help to take this addiction away, because I couldn't not drink. No matter how bad I wanted to, I couldn't stop. It used to be fun when I was younger, and then it got to be a problem, and then it got to be an addiction. I did it whether I wanted to or not. I just couldn't stop doing it. I craved it all the time. that night he took the cravings away. That was the first time I actually used God for what he wanted me to use him for. He, you know, they say he gives us the strength to do for ourselves what he can't, you know, well, whatever the saying is. Gives us the strength to do for ourselves what he, you know, whatever we can't do. But that night he gave me the strength, and he took my cravings away, and that was March 26, 2016. And since then, my life has done a complete 360. I tell you what, you know, I don't go to church to mask anything. I don't go to church to hide anything. I go to church to give God the grace and praise that he so gratefully deserves for giving me the strength to finally be the man that I thought that I should be. You know, I try to walk in his steps now, as opposed to using his steps as a crutch to get what I want. I try to give him what he deserves. He has given me way more than I deserve. I try to give back now. I got into the AA program. He gave me that as a tool to use to do for myself. I love my program. I love my church. My kids seem to, well, what teenage kids respect anybody, but it seems like they respect me more. We have more fun. My wife and I, you know, it was like being reborn and remarried when I finally quit. It didn't happen just overnight. Now, granted, the cravings and stuff went away, but you know, I realized after being in the program for a long time that it wasn't going to just take overnight and saying I was quitting drinking. You know, I'd done that way too many times. I knew I was going to have to take time and prove to myself basically that I could quit, and quit because I wanted to quit. I really wanted to make a change. And it wasn't easy, you know. It wasn't easy destroying everything, but it sure in the heck wasn't easy rebuilding everything. So I had drank for almost 30 years, and I knew I wasn't going to fix that overnight. You know, me and the wife have been married for some reason. She had stuck with me for 20 years, and I've devoted, you know, the next 20 to giving her back at least a little bit of what she's given me over the years, because she damn sure deserves it. But I had to learn to love myself with what I had instead of always thinking I needed more. That I think is what part of the insanity is. No matter how much you got, you always think you need more, and you need something that, you know, you really don't. You know, I didn't need to be any more popular than I already was, because I had plenty of friends. Everybody knew me. But for some reason, I wanted to drink with the people that I really didn't need around. You know, I didn't need to do drugs, but they were there, and I thought I'd try them, and then I was hooked. That feeling that they gave me was something that I didn't need, but I wanted. So, you know, I try to help people nowadays, and to give back for everything I took for all the years that I was addicted. All I ever wanted to do was help myself for all those years, and now I know there's nothing else that I need other than to try to make God happy. You know, that's my daily goal right there, is to do what God wants me to do for today to make him happy. And if I can make him happy, then I'm happy.
Lord.
Amen.
And you know, just loving myself today is all I need. And I don't know. We all have a story, like Brother Jason said. We all have a story. You know, mine is probably the same as anybody else's. Uh, but there is help. There is hope, and I. I've learned a new family in recovery, and I can't thank them enough for being there. I mean, I've got brothers and sisters now that, you know, I had a lot of friends when I was in the bars, but they wouldn't do anything for me like what my brothers and sisters in recovery will do. And my church family, my God family, you know, we're all family. I will help anybody at any time now, and which is more than I ever would have done before. But due to the strength of God and the program He's given me to use, I'm still alive today, and I just can't thank God enough for giving me the strength to be able to come up here and share with you guys. And I just want y'all to know I love each and every one of you, and that's my story.
Amen.
God bless.